So last week we officially ended off discussing the topic of bugs and produce, and we discussed more at length the subject of blending and how that works with bugs and produce that is infested, and if one has to check before blending or not. This week we're going to be covering practical questions that came in about throughout the topic of bug checking, and we'll cover as much as possible from the various questions that have come in. So we'll begin. One question that came in was, is there a hiddur to specifically buy the bodek lettuce or produce that's been already checked? It does cost a lot more than regular produce. Is there any halachic reason to go with that than to buy the regular produce, which is much cheaper? So the answer in truth is depends. If a person knows how to check and got the basic idea of how bugs look like and has the time to check things properly, then there's no need to spend all that extra money. And the Torah does not want us to be spending extra money. The Torah wants us to use it for better things. However, if somebody knows that for whatever reason they're not yet familiar and they don't know really much what they should be looking for, so until they get breaded training, they should try sticking to produce which has already been checked, like hashgacha. Or if someone knows that they're going to be limited with time, and therefore they're not going to be able to check properly, so then in such a case, obviously it would be better to buy such produce. Or if someone just wants to save the time, it's not a halachic requirement, but like they say, time is money, and if someone feels like it's worth it for them to invest in paying more for produce than taking all the time to wash it, then that's their own decision, but that's not a halachic decision. Next question that came in was in regards to blending. If a food first needs to be cooked before being blended, is there an issue to cook the food first to soften it, even though there could be bugs in there, and then to blend it? The answer is there's no issue. As we mentioned briefly in one of the classes, that bugs don't give off any taste. That's a halachic issue or concern of kashrus. The taste of bugs is not considered food or edible or being edible, and therefore there's no issue with the taste of the bugs. So the taste that comes out of the bugs as you're cooking won't affect the food, and just the bugs themselves, as long as they're whole, is what's forbidden. And as soon as you blend it, you take care of that as well. So that's not a concern. So it's totally fine to cook or to soften the food. Let's say if someone wants to make a broccoli soup, by first cooking the broccoli and then blending it, that's not an issue. And again, we're dealing where you don't see the bugs. That's what we discussed in the last class. You don't know that there's bugs. It's just a doubt whether there are bugs or not. Once we're talking about the topic of the taste of bugs, we'll bring another question that came in. Someone asked, what if I want to make chicken soup and I want to use dill? Dill is pretty infested and it's hard to properly wash and check. Is there any way to go about it? And actually they sell special bags which have very, very tight, the weave is very, very tight and nothing can leave except for the flavor of the food. But any bugs that's in the produce will not go into the soup. These bags are sold by some Jewish brands, I believe Lieber's. You have to just be careful, make sure you choose the right ones. There are times that they have the bags which are more like a cheesecloth, which don't keep bugs out. It's just to keep things less messy in the chicken soup or in the soup. And there's bags that specifically say that keep bugs out. Those are fine. And the same thing, even though there may be bugs and they may be giving off taste as you're cooking it, the taste is not a concern halachically, and there is no issue with that. Another question that came in, is there any cheaper options for light boxes? The ones that were posted were in the $60 range. Is there anything cheaper? So yeah, actually on Amazon, there are cheaper options. If you would search on Amazon, so like a sketch light pad or something like that, that will come up. And maybe I could share a screen very quickly and show if there is such an item that could be found online. Let's see one second if that's something I can do right now. Okay, for some reason I'm not able, here it is. So we will share quickly the screen And here on Amazon, you see here's one example, the A4 LED copyboard light tracing box. It's being sold now for $15.98. That's a very good deal. So that's an example of something which is cheap and is another option. Once we're on the sharing screen, another question that came in is, what if I cannot, or I do not have a light box at home? Is there any way to make one at home in an easy way? So I'll share right now a video on the screen. This video will not have sound, as it doesn't have sound, it just has captions in Hebrew. And I will say the captions in English as the video plays. And afterwards we'll return back to the regular class. So this video is how to make a light box at home. You could take either a type of sieve where the mesh comes off, or in America, you could probably find something like a spring-form pan and just remove the bottom. It doesn't matter exactly what it is, as long as you have the idea of something open on both sides with some space. They say you take your phone and you put the flashlight on, and many times the phone has different settings of how bright the flashlight. You obviously want to put it on the brightest. And then you take a type of tray or a flat surface. It could be a cutting board with a thinner. It's got to be a thin surface so the light can come through properly, and it should be white. It should not be see-through. More on the white side. And you put that on top, and then right on top of that, you put your cloth, and right there in the circle, you'll first have a small circle to check things. You'll have a smaller area. If you lift your spring-form pan or whatever it is, you'll have a bigger circle, and you have more of an area to check, and that is right there, a makeshift to have to make it at home, and then you can go ahead and use it as you wish at home. So that's in short. If someone doesn't have that, another method which you can do if you don't have all the spring-form pan and all that, if you just take a white surface, and that white surface could be a placemat, a white placemat, it could be a white cutting board, it could even be, if you don't have anything, you take a white plate, and you put the cloth on it, and then you take your flashlight from your phone, and you point it on the white. As it goes on the white, it will make things light up. It will reflect off the white, and it will be very bright. You go around with a small circle that's brighter, and you'll check from above with your flashlight, and you'll move the cloth around to get under that circle, and you could check your cloth in that way as well, with simply just a white background, a cloth, and basically the light on your phone or another flashlight. So that's that. Another question came in, do I need to use a light box or a cloth, or can I just check the water? There is such a method out there that after you soaked your vegetables and you took them out, instead of pouring it through the cloth and doing the whole method, you just look in the bowl and you check it. However, when it comes to checking a bowl, since water has there's depth, and on that depth there's many layers, and there's different things floating on different layers depending on how very heavy they are. The dirt obviously is more on the bottom. Pieces of produce are floating somewhere in the middle, and the bug could be somewhere in the middle. They're not always going to be on top. So to start discerning what's what and which level and the different depths, and trying to see all the bugs like that is pretty difficult. It's not as easy as seeing it on a white surface. But if someone wants to do it that way, they should use a white bowl, and they should try to put it on a light box that might help things light up a bit. If not, go with a strong flashlight from above, and try to look and really try to find every layer within the bowl and try to spot whatever's there and see if it looks like a bug. It's a little harder, but if that's what's easier for a person to do, it's an option that exists out there. Once we're mentioning that, it's always worth, even when you're doing the shmata method, before pouring it through the shmata, it can't hurt to check the water quickly and see if you see anything there. So if you see something already there, you don't have to go through the shmata process and all that. You can already go and rewash it. That's just a tip to mention. The next question that came in was, we mentioned many items on the blacklist, but figs were not discussed. important, we did mention the figs and dates and dried fruits need to be checked. The question is if they're blacklisted. So in regards to figs, many hashgachas actually, again, those that take the stricter approach do blacklist them. The mainstream approach is you cut them lengthwise in half, you turn them over until all the seeds are spread out, and you look really well in between all the seeds to see if anything looks like a bug. Some suggest soaking them in warm water for a few hours to soften them up, and then flipping them over and checking the water as well. If bugs come out in the water, if once it's soaked, the seeds are more spreadable, they're not as sticky, and you can see better in there, and then check it like that. But some say that dried figs are blacklisted and should not be used. A suggestion, if someone still wants to eat dried figs, how to do it is to open the figs, to scrape out with the spoon all the little seeds, and to just have the skin, which is easier to check, and then you can cook with that skin, or you can blend it and use it in a blended way after checking some samples and not seeing any bugs. Regarding fresh figs, the generally accepted opinion in mainstream hashgachas is to take a handful, which should have at least 3-4 figs in them, and check each one, and then the rest of that container is fine for the fresh figs. And those that take the stricter approach, some will hold that you shouldn't be eating fresh figs either, unless you scrape out the seeds, and some say you could if you check each and every single one very thoroughly. Another question that came in is in regards to greenhouse grown or hydroponic, or all these different new methods of growing that are indoors. Does that mean that you don't have to check it for bugs? And the answer is that no, these still have bugs. Bugs can come in through water, and even if it's airtight, bugs can make their way in through the different methods and ways. By people coming in, bugs have a way to find themselves even in that, and it still needs checking. So just because it says hydroponic or greenhouse grown or vertical farming, whatever it says, those things still have a high enough chance to have bugs that we need to check it before consuming it. The next question which came in was in regards to pre-washed iceberg. Iceberg in general is a bit less infested than regular lettuce. First of all, because it's not as green. The bugs naturally are attracted to the green nutrients and the chlorophyll that's found inside the leaf. When it's less green, they're not as attracted to it. In addition, because it grows like a ball and a bit more tighter, so the bugs usually are more on the outer layers, and the inner layers don't have as much. So because of that, it is lower in infestation, but still there is infestation even in triple washed. Although in triple wash they do remove many outer layers, that they wash it sometimes actually 3 times, but it's not enough to fully remove the bugs, and there's still bugs. The question is if you have to go and check every single piece. If you have the shmata method, you could just check everything with one shmata, put everything, soak it, and then put it through a shmata. If you don't have a shmata method, then it would be acceptable to do a chazaka, to take 3 handfuls and to check each piece. If those are fine, then for iceberg specifically, that would be acceptable. And again, this is for non-organic produce. In addition, if it's shredded iceberg, all the shredded iceberg companies that I visited, they first shred the iceberg and then they wash it. In such a case, because it's shredded, things are washed very well. There's not much crevices and places for the bugs to remain. And shredded iceberg, from my experience, is fine to use out of the bag, even if there is no hashgacha. Next that comes up is broccoli slaw. Sorry, fine. It's coleslaw first. Someone asked about coleslaw, pre-washed coleslaw. Cabbage as well has the advantages of iceberg, and even more because it grows tighter and less bugs get in it, and it's firmer and less cracks and crevices. So when you wash it, it's more easily washable. So pre-washed cabbage and coleslaw is acceptable without hashgacha and doesn't need further checking. If someone wants to take a little bit more of a Mahuder approach, then they would check a few handfuls. Or if they have the shmata method, but that's not required. Halakhically, it's fine and acceptable. The next question was in regards to broccoli slaw. So when it comes to broccoli slaw, although broccoli slaw generally is made from the core of the broccoli, not from the florets, and the core generally doesn't have bugs, nevertheless, after many months of research, hashgachas have found many insects in broccoli slaw, and especially in organic broccoli slaw. But because it was found in both regular broccoli slaw and in organic, it's only recommended to use after one washed it well and checked it with a thrip cloth, or if not, they would have to check the water, figure out a way to check it, but it would need to be checked because of the bugs that are found them, and bugs usually end up in there because there are parts of florets which end up in there as well. When it comes to, the next question was rice cauliflower. So there are some rice cauliflowers out there that are acceptable. According to the research of CRC Chicago, only commercially sold frozen rice cauliflower that is raw and plain and was pre-washed after being riced is approved. And they have the companies which they have looked into and have approved, which is Bird's Eye and Green Giant, that meet this criteria that it's washed after it was riced. Besides for that, they don't have more information, but you can check their website to have more information on that. Another question came in regards to bugs in New York City water. Someone asked, is it okay to drink New York City water? So this was a big discussion in at least around 2004, a bit later, where bugs started being found in New York City water. It was a very long discussion. It's a very long topic. Many Rabbanim came out and said you're not allowed to drink the water and it has to be filtered. Some came out and said it's okay to drink the water. One should be in touch with their Rav to get a psak, whether they should be drinking New York City water, but you should know that it's specifically New York City water due to the fact that it's not properly filtered, due to an advantage that it comes generally very clean, and therefore they don't do all types of filtration that other cities would do. Next comes a question, is there a way to check with a chazaka for other produce? So we'll share the screen again. This is going to be a screenshot from the OK Vegetable Checking Manual. You can look there again if you want further reference. But they bring over there in the OK's manual, I want to mention it very briefly, but that if someone washes it 2 times with soap, and while it's soaking, rubs each leaf under their fingers, and afterwards cleans it off with running water and rubs each leaf, does that 2 times, basically after that, they can take 3 leaves and check those 3 leaves, and that will suffice. That will be enough to have a chazaka that you could assume that the produce is clean, but they write that this is only for someone that's doing it at home. This is not recommended for a commercial setting. And again, you can look at the vegetable guide by the OK for more details. It's called the alternate method. It's brought in their guide after the shmata method. The next question which came in was in regards to bugs in honey. Is there a concern with bugs with honey? So if honey is unfiltered, not filtered at times, there will be bee body parts if it's different parts of the bee, because honey is very sticky and there are different bee body parts can be found there, and those body parts are forbidden due to the being part of a bug, and therefore it needs to be filtered out. And if the honey needs to be heated up to filter out the body parts, it's not a concern, as we mentioned before, because the only thing that's going to happen is the taste of the bug will come out, and the taste of the bug is not a halachic issue. We'll stop here, and it's been a pleasure covering this topic. There's, again, more on this topic at kashrusbeintheknow.com, and Veggie Bug Buddies over there have a few more